Welcome to the Soul Touched by Dogs podcast, the show for dog lovers who see dogs not as toys or tools, but wise souls worth our respect and care. I'm Anke Herman, and I'm your host. I talk to awesome humans, people who do great work for dogs and their people. So come and join us for today's conversation. Hello and welcome, Lisa. I'm super excited to have you here.
Oh, I'm really happy to be here as well. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, I just love your accent, so I can't wait to make you talk. so, so let's just start out. Let's just dive right in. Let people know where in this lovely world you're based and what's your business with dogs.
Yeah, so I'm based in Ireland. I live in a place called Wicklow in the Wicklow Mountains on a horse farm. So I'm nice and connected to nature, and there's dogs and deers and all sorts. And the work that I do with dogs is I work as an animal healer and communicator. So, in a nutshell, what I do is if a dog has emotional imbalances or physical imbalances, spiritual imbalances, I can use different botanicals that the animal would self-select in order to bring themselves back into balance. So, I'm working with skin issues, gut issues, all the usual kind of stuff, and anxiety, reactivity, on the lead, and all this good stuff that goes on with the doggies. And by also, I suppose, having the animal communication side to it as well, it adds in a real profound level of understanding where the dogs will select their own botanicals. They'll tell me the direction to take. They'll tell me what their meridians are out of balance. They'll tell me what their guardians need in order to bring themselves back into balance. Because I really look at both ends of the lead. I think that's really, really important. And especially with dogs, I suppose, that are quite reactive, quite fearful, quite nervous. It's always really interesting to dig into that and see if there's a mirror going on with the person. So it's a very, very deep process that people can go on with me if they want to.
Wow, that is fascinating. What really stuck with me is like, oh, they choose their botanicals, and that's so true. I've seen them. My dogs when you kind of like the stomach's a little bit like dazed. I often thought like, how do they know which plant to pick, right? So they're not
Yeah.
going to just grab any plant. So that's fascinating. Now, I'm obviously curious how you discovered this path for yourself. Like, when did you notice that this was something you wanted to do? Like, were you always sort of intuitive that you could kind of feel into, tune into animals, or was that something you learned? And then, all the other, especially the botanical stuff. Like, how the heck did you get into that?
Yeah, so since I was a little girl, I wanted to be a vet, and when I was a toddler, the first time Mum brought me into a butcher's, I screamed and demanded to leave. All right, so I always said I want to be vegetarian. Like, as soon as I realized it was a thing, as I got a bit older, and I became vegetarian at 12 then. So I just had this real compassion for animals. As a young girl, I would bring home sick animals like sick seagulls, sick pigeons. I'd find kittens here, and I was really, really locked into the animals. And what I noticed is from a young age as well that my friends' animals in their houses and stuff, say there was an animal that didn't like to be picked up. I would just automatically go over and pick the animal up, and they'd snuggle, and they'd be like, "Oh my God, that cat won't let anyone, touch them." And I'm like, "Yo." So I had dogs all my life as well. And eventually I went and worked in a vet's for 2 years, between the age of 16 and 18, just to really get a feel for that world and surgery and everything that I used to work in. And I then got into vet school, but I decided not to do it. I did a science degree, and that helped me get into vet school. But then I backtracked in the end because the fees were astronomical. And I just thought to myself, do I want to get collared with this debt? But I feel that there was something deeper inside me, probably that I didn't realize was guiding me down a different path. So I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for about 7 years, which gave me a real understanding of the drugs. which is really, really valuable now for working with all animals. And then I lost the fear of all the white coats because I was working with doctors all day, every day. And then I started to meditate. And when I started to meditate, I realized it was time to jump ship. And then I started to do deep, deep practices over many years. And it woke up even more this intuition that was always in me for animals. And I started then to really understand that I could hear them on a much more profound level and pick up what's going on for them. And I did a professional training then in animal communication over a period of 2 years. And then I started to study botanicals, okay? Because I realized when I was doing the animal communication on its own, it wasn't enough. The animals are saying this is wrong, and I'm like, well, now I want to help you with that. So that's where the botanicals came in. So I studied flower essences, and then I studied zoopharmacognosy, which is animals that know how to self-medicate. And that's when I brought in herbs and diluted essential oils, hydrosols, and yeah, lots of different things. So now I work remotely. I do it all remotely. So I've got animal clients all over the world, and yeah, it's been a profound journey, and it's kind of circled back really because now I'm at a place in my career where I collaborate with holistic vets both in the United States and in Ireland all the time. A lot of my closest friends are holistic vets. We just got to know each other through the animals. So now I feel like where they end, I begin, and where I end, they begin. So it becomes this, some animals need both. You got a very seriously sick animal. It just becomes this fusion, where the sum is greater, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, as they say. And yeah, it's been an amazing journey, and it's just getting deeper. Yeah,
That sounds wonderful, and I love the depth of it and the compassion in it, and yeah, and there is also so much to learn. So I can totally see. I mean, I've had like holistic vets on the show, and it's like, yeah, there is so much to learn. Like nobody can do all of it, right? So that makes
exactly.
that makes perfect sense. So what do clients? Is there something specific that you find like patterns where you think like this is what people seek you out for more than
Yeah.
others?
Yeah,
Other
so
things?
yeah, absolutely. I end up, I suppose, working with a lot of animals, dogs that are, really out of balance emotionally. I feel like I feel like I need to talk about that side. Like I work in so many different ways, but that seems to be coming true today, where we have a reactive dog, for example, or just not even the word reactive, just an out of balance dog, a misunderstood dog. And sometimes what can happen is we may use a cookie cutter approach and try and address issues with animals to a certain funnel. And what I recognize is that one of the things that I apply in my work is 5 elements Chinese medicine. And that teaches you how there's different characteristic, different personality types. It's not set in stone. It's a very, very deep ancient practice. But I want to give you an example of one dog that I was working on yesterday that from the get go, out of the litter, it was a good breeder, right? But out of the litter, the dogs were being trained to see if they could be therapy animals. And this little darling was put into his first home, and he became so scared and so frightened. He was sent back as unsuitable, really, and he really lost his nerve at that point. And then he ended up finding a very, very, very loving family. But he was a very nervous dog, and on the lead, hard to manage, would get triggered by different things, sounds, fireworks, bicycles, skateboards, male dogs, these kind of things. And they worked on him with all their love in their hearts over about 4 year period, trying to train the dog and expose him to the triggers. And they're so courageous. They realized then that this wasn't working. And straight away for me, when I heard his story and when I went deeper into his case, I could see he is what we call a water element in Chinese medicine, a water element constitution. So these animals are naturally nervous. Their key organs are the kidneys and the bladder, so they'll usually have issues in those areas, and they're the organs of fear. And these are the animals that, because the kidneys rule the health of the ears, they can be highly reactive to noises, right? So any of your animals at this time of year, I don't know when this is going to be published, but it's Halloween, right? So there's so many fireworks going off. So these fearful animals that are sensitive to noises would be the ones triggered the most by all those things that dog was triggered. So he needed internal healing, right? Internal work to rebalance him, to make him more resilient, and often a bit of a softer approach as well, because he's a city dog, so they bring him to the country for walks, and so it's about really understanding who the dog is as an individual. That's how I work. I try and see who they are now, who they were before, and who do we see they could become. Because water elements are also very adventurous, very driven. When they're balanced, they're very calm, peaceful, and they've got a lot of wisdom. The wisdom comes from that kidney energy. So it's about helping the animal, the dog, transform into their better selves. So yeah, that's
I love that. I'm nodding along here because I've had a guest once who she was talking about the five Chinese elements. And
mm,
so she was sort of counting it down, and I'm like, yeah, my little Kai who passed last year, he was a water dog classic case, like totally classic case, like super noise sensitive. And he did really well when I moved to this quieter environment, out of a city hustle where I thought the poor soul had always information overload 24/7, right? And so when I brought him into this quieter space, he was a whole different dog,
no.
and that whole wisdom came out. And and then all of a sudden he wasn't pulling on the lead, and he was friendly with other dogs. And I didn't train anything, right? So I just allowed him to to settle, to calm, and have that environment that suited him. So I love that you brought, just out of all the different types, that was the example. Because I think the thing is, I think especially those dogs, they can easily be seen as a difficult dog, right? Because if you
Yeah.
don't know what's underneath, it's easy to misunderstand. So how would people, like, what is it that people come to you for? Because, like, that, yeah, that dog's just misunderstood. That's not usually what people reach out for. Is it when
Mm.
they've tried all kinds of things and nothing's worked? Or what are sort of the what are they saying to you that they want?
Yeah, you're right. It's usually, people find me when they've tried all the usual avenues, unless they know me, or
Mm.
unless they're really holistically minded and or they've been recommended by word of mouth as well. But usually it's they've tried all the usual avenues, and it just hasn't worked. It's just come into kind of like a bit of a cul-de-sac. And then you see, and I'm talking about physical or emotional or mental stuff here, right? And the challenge that that gives me then is that people then think, well, I'll just try this, and then, the thing about it is, what I say to people is like, okay, you've tried this, that, and the other, but have you asked the dog? Have you asked the dog what it is they need to heal? And have you looked at what is the dog possibly mirroring to you? If we look at ourselves and have that level of courage for self-reflection, and we're willing to look at our imbalances and take action on them, it frees the animal, the dog, up from mirroring them, us. They do it to all of us, like, and then you can get results where results were not possible before. So I do feel that there's a divine timing to when people find me.
Mhm.
And I know that the animals know who I am. They know what I can do. They know what skills I have. So it's funny. They kind of like, I joke, they become a bit like my sales rep. Like, say, for example, I'm on a discovery call, right? And the person's there and the dog's there. And sure, like, I remember there was one little doggy, a little dash hound, and this doggy had a lot of issues going on behaviorally as well. And in the call, the dog climbs up into the arms of the man and just snuggles in when I was talking about the human to animal mirroring. And they were like, he never, ever does this. And I'm like, yeah, they always do something on the discovery call out of behavior to show, listen to Lisa.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
So you've
it's
got your little
amazing.
army of reps running around
Yeah,
there.
I totally do. Like,
Oh, that is funny.
yeah.
So what's like, do you have an example, because the whole, like, we all know how much in tune our dogs are with us. Like we don't often kind of know how this works both ways, right?
Mm.
So, do you have an example of, where like a kind of a trait or an imbalance was mirrored, and once that kind of once you could see that through, or they could see through that, like things resolve. Like what would be an example of something your dog could mirror and take on?
Mm. Um, so I want to talk about grief. I think there's a lot of grief in the world at this point in time, and a lot of unresolved grief, especially after what the world went through during the whole lockdown thing and the whole pandemic thing. I think there's a lot of unresolved stuff there, and there's this new terminology. It's called pandemic puppies.
Oh,
Okay, yeah, which it's like for me that the animals that were born at that time literally mirrored our psychosis at that time. Okay, and whichever side of the fence you were on of that conversation, it's still the same to me. Like everybody was nervous, they were just expressing their nervousness in a different way. And these pandemic puppies that came along, then a lot of them have massive behavioral issues. And one of my friends is a doggy minder, and so she can see the difference. She sees it en masse. It's really it's like an open experiment in a way, the conversations we have around that. So often when people approach me to work with their dogs around that issue, I'll say to them, like, how were you during the time of the pandemic? Like, what was going on in your mind? And I one really clear example is before it all kicked off. I'd say on average I would do a reading for a reactive dog on the lead maybe once every 2 weeks, right? More or less. Más or menos. And then, as you're in Spain, and then what happened then was when that pandemic kicked in, I was doing on average three a week. All
wow.
right. And that's when I really, really, really had to double down on the human to animal mirroring, which I just love. And I had open, frank conversations. It was usually women. And I'm saying, are you afraid? Are you afraid when you're walking the dog? Are you afraid walking alone in wooded areas? Or if your dog's reacting to men, are you afraid of men? Has something happened to you in the past where there's something subconsciously going on? And nine times out of ten, the women are so brave, and they'll face it, and will then the dog then selects flower essences not only for themselves but also ones they make up ones for their person. And the accuracy of that mix, when I share it with the people, they're just like, how does the dog know the nuances of my thought processes, my emotion processes? I'm like, well, they're picking it up every second of every day. They're reading you like a book. So then you have this kind of this healing feedback loop. Instead of the fear, you switch it into a healing feedback loop. The dog knows the healing is going back up the lead, and then they start to relax, and then they start to walks start to become easier. The women, they feel more comfortable in their own skin. So that's a massive, massive theme I've seen over the years that really, really escalated at that time. So
Yeah, that makes
yeah,
so much sense.
yeah.
It's also something that's kind of so visible, like that nervousness. And yeah, I'm still like totally fascinated by, how the dogs, I mean, I didn't even, well, you kind of see that when they're out and they, like that they pick, that they know what plants to pick, but I had no idea that they would even know how to pick the right thing for their person.
Well, yeah, that's something I've developed.
Mm,
Because when I was trained in the zoo cog, it was really just about the animals self-selecting for themselves. But then I just went on a roll with it, and I just said, let me try this. So I've studied like different methods of selecting flower essences in a specific way that actually tells a very clear emotional picture. It's something I learned from a gentleman called Tony Pincus, who works at Ainsworth Homeopathic Pharmacy in London, giving him a shout out because he's absolutely amazing. And he teaches that for people to self-select for themselves. But I just went and I just said, I'm going to go on a roll with this, and I'm going to ask the animals to do it for their person. And sometimes they'll share it with the person. They'll share the essence mix with the person. Sometimes they'll just have it for themselves and then a separate one for their person. And sometimes they'll also do one for the entire family. If there's something going on in the household where you do what we call the bowl method, where you put the flower essences mix that the animal, the dog has selected in different bowls around the house, and it absorbs all the emotions into the bowl, and then you tip it into the earth, and it's just, you can absolutely transform households because the dog knows everything.
I know, it's fascinating. So what does like how does one have to picture that? So like how does the dog choose? Like do you kind
Mm,
of like
yeah.
have a bunch of bowls and they kind of stick their nose into one that they like, or like what does choosing look like?
Yeah, sure. It's a really good question. So I work remotely, right? So I work from photographs. So I'll have photos of the dog. So what I do is I have a pendulum, and then I have lists that I've created of the different essences,
Oh,
right? And I say to the dog, basically, you take over the pendulum. And I have enough stillness in myself at this point of my life to trust, you
mm,
know. And then so then they'll just go beep beep beep, and they'll first of all they'll pick the process we're going to use, and then when they pick the process, then we go to the list in the way that it needs to be gone to, or a specific list. And then I just make it up, and I post it to people, but I also send them a little paragraph and I'm saying, okay, so they selected this essence because this is probably going on, because actually you might be thinking this, which may lead to this. So that is what blows people's minds. They're like, that's what I've been thinking the last, month, and I can't get it out of my head. And I'm like, yeah, the dog knows.
I love that. I love because I
Yeah,
think it's we so often underestimate dogs, right? I think that's
yeah.
like for me, that's one of the reasons I even started this because I always feel, you know, just looking at them as a toy for the kids and a tool to find people or like support. You know, it's like
Mm.
looking at them as toys or tools is just not giving them justice. You know, like there's
Oh,
so much
yeah.
more that they have going for them,
Oh,
and it doesn't
absolutely.
always have to be for the benefit of a person, right?
Hmm. Yeah, because they're their own sentient beings. They have their own life purpose. They have their own soul wishes, and you know, it's about
So
tapping
how
into
in
that.
your case, like um what does like how do you when you communicate, when you kind of tune into to a dog or an animal,
Mm.
like for you personally, how do you receive the message? Because I know that like
Yeah.
sometimes people will feel it in their body, sometimes hear people things, see things. Like how does it show up
Mm.
for you?
For me, mostly I'm clairaudient, so I hear their voices.
Mm,
They sometimes will flash DVDs into my mind if they want me to see something that's been going on for them. I can, if I look at their photo, I can feel their sadness, I can feel their fear, whatever it is. So there's a combination of different things that come true for me, and the type of animal communication that has always just been my go-to, it's not something that I asked or I directed it towards, is really like it's real soul level stuff. Like it's real profound. So I do individual animal communication sessions, and it's like people within the first 5 minutes are usually in tears. Because the first thing we start off with is, what are the three key things your dog wants you to know now for you as a person?
mm,
And the accuracy of that, like, because it just taps into the heart energy, and they're like, oh my God, again, it's one of those moments. How does the dog know that that's going on for me? So real life shifts, life stuff. And then when we go to the dog, and I say, well, what do you want out of this session? What do you need? And they might say, oh, my hips are bad, or my tooth is bad. One doggy recently had a bad tooth, but he can't go to the vet because he gets really scared. And now they're like, then they brought him to the vet, and sure enough, he has a rotten tooth. So, that kind of stuff will come through. Um, but yeah, it'll come through. I usually write furiously. I write everything down furiously when I'm doing that work, because when I hear it's not mine. It's channeling through me. So I write it down because I'll forget. Like people go, do you remember in the last session? I'm like, don't ask me to remember. It's not my information. Yeah.
I mean that is so that's funny, and it's like I've experienced that especially when I first did coach training. And the type of coach training I did was like very spiritual, like very deep. And it's almost like the more in the moment, the more present I am, the more connected I feel. Like after the set, don't ask me. I don't know what we talked about. Like I
Yeah.
literally don't know, right? So I
Yeah.
kind of like it makes sense to me, but it is kind of weird. It's kind of can freak you out a little bit. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you work like you work with dogs, but other animals? Like what other animals are maybe horses? I mean, they are like really. So
Yeah.
and what are the kind of animals you work with, and who's your favorite?
Yeah,
You
so
don't
I
have to
work.
say dog.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I work with cats and dogs at the moment. Obviously, for the animal communication, like in terms of physical and emotional healing, I work mostly with cats and dogs because that's what most people come to me for. I did do an animal communication session recently with some ravens, some old long-term clients that are two ravens of mine that live in the States. So the animal communication, I do that with any kind of animal. But then the deeper healing stuff with the botanicals is usually dogs and cats. I have a large body of experience of working with horses, and going down to the stables and working with a range of physical stuff going on. I absolutely love horses and emotional stuff as well. But it's not a focus for me at the moment. At the moment, it's the dogs and the cats because I'm doing most of my work remotely. Whereas I just feel with horses, you really need to show up in the stables. There's something about it, you know. And yeah, so that's who I work with
I was
right
just
now.
thinking like it's a bit hard to imagine the horse on a Zoom call.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I know you work with photos, but I mean that image just popped to mind. I'm like, that'd be
Yeah, I
hilarious, right?
have done it though. I have done it, and I've done it a few times, and I'll say it's hard because they're out in the stables, and chances are it's a rural setting, and there's bad signal. Right? You know, and you're just like, oh, this isn't working. Whereas I just think there's something about them. You need to show up, you know. I absolutely love them. So, which is my favorite? I think, like, I genuinely think it's a tie between cats and horses. And then the doggies, I love doggies too. Like, so, but it's, if you want to pick winners for me, it's probably cats and horses,
Oh, I love
if I'm
that.
being honest.
Well, I mean, that's obviously like I don't want you to say dog just because we're in a dog show. Like,
Yeah,
so it's like
exactly.
I want to know what you really feel. So definitely. So where can people find out more and book you and how does that work? And you also have a gift that I know of. So
Yeah.
tell me about it.
So the gift that I have for everybody is it's a beautiful meditation, a link to the meditation where you can download and listen to a healing meditation. It's a meditation that helps you really open up your heart energy to connect in with your animal family. And when you do animal communication, it's true heart to heart connection. Okay, the true mind. And so this meditation is designed where you can connect with any animal, whether they're beside you to bring healing to them and healing for you, or if your animal friend is separated from you for any reason, maybe they're in the vets or you're traveling or things like that, or you're grieving the loss of an animal that you really, really miss. And you want to feel their energy signature. This meditation will bring in their energy and it feels like you've just seen them. So it's a real heart hug. It's just gorgeous. It's my most popular meditation. So that's why I just give it out. I have to put it out into the world. And it's suitable for beginners. It's fully guided with some beautiful music. And so I'd love people to feel and see how your animal responds when you listen to it. Yeah, they do all sorts of stuff like and to kind of give you clarity and verification that this stuff is real, you know. And then I suppose the next step then, if people want to work with me to dip their toe in even more, would be maybe to try one of my individual animal communication sessions, and they're done remotely over Zoom, horses included. And yeah, and we can have some fun with that as well. And then if your animal though is your cat or dog is has got serious emotional challenges and balances, physical stuff going on, then I offer 6 month programs, Happy Cat, Happy You and Happy Dog, Happy You. And that's where we bring in all the botanical work, all the them healing you, you healing them, and we use all the Chinese medicine and we go deep, and we get answers. Yeah.
Sounds Fabulous. I
Yeah.
can't wait to try that meditation. So I'm gonna
Yeah, yeah. So
get
so
that
my
myself.
yeah,
Well, thank you so much. This was
yeah.
really, really insightful. And yeah, and I just, I can totally see like that meditation, like if your voice is there, you've got such a soothing voice. So
Oh, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, people have said that to me before, and what's really interesting is when I work with an animal, and if their guardians are playing my one of my TikTok videos or one of my meditations, the animal comes straight up to the screen. Yeah, they know my voice a mile away now. But yeah, so I also forgot to mention my website. Is yeah, that's probably key, isn't it?
that would help.
Yeah. My website is animalhealing.ie. So that's really easy to remember. So yeah,
Awesome.
come on over.
Well, thank you so much. And yeah, an
Yeah.
absolute delight. And I hope to have you back someday.
Yeah, I'd love to come back. Thank you for having me, and thank you to everyone who's listening.
Thank you. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review so other dog lovers can find the show. If you haven't already, head over to soultouchedbydogs.com and sign up for weekly doggy cuteness, tips, recommendations, and personal stories to warm your dog-loving heart. And if you know a awesome human you think I should interview, I'd love an introduction. Email me at Anke, that's ANKE, at soultouchedbydogs.com.